Let's take a look at I want to get your Spurs take on the Tottenham stuff. Let's take a look at this.
Getting toxic at Spurs, where it seems like they've collectively agreed that the fans were the problem at the weekend. Vicario, on the team's reaction to the defeat against Chelsea, we've spoken, we need cooler heads. If we had a bit more help during some situations from the stands, maybe we could do a bit better. But we can't do anything about that. It was a big, painful situation. They can express their pain. But there was also this. Spurs believed that Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven ignoring Thomas Frank after full-time versus Chelsea wasn't a slight on Frank, but instead more of a show of frustration of what had developed and a build-up of negativity from fans at their home stadium over previous weeks. So that was the fans' fault as well. And Thomas Frank also saying, I thought the fans were fantastic and noisy for the first 30 minutes, but there was a turn after we conceded the goal after the game, and we had performed badly, more than fair the boos, but during the game, we need the fans. You've got to perform in a way that's going to get the fans behind you. Kind
of interesting that, Frank a little bit, but the players sort of talking about we could have done better if the fans were on our side, and there's obviously the Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven refusing to go and clap the fans. They've only won 3 home games in the last 19 at home. It doesn't feel a happy place considering the fact they're in the sort of the Champions League spots. They were third at the start of that game. It feels like there's a bit of a crisis really at Spurs, strangely enough.
Look, one of the world's number one fan creators is not going to go in on fans. And I'm talking about Terry. But no, look, my opinion is Spurs is incredible. I saw this at the weekend. They are 4th from bottom for home form and top for away form in the league. It's crazy. So, Man United really should go and win there on Saturday, fingers crossed. But the criticism of fans thing is always an easy thing to do because it's faceless. We're all fans, but there's many of us. So who are you actually picking on? Football fans are expected to, go all around the country, pay ridiculous amounts of money, give up on family time, spend most of their Saturday, even if it's a home game, traveling, getting through traffic, you pay big money. And then when the team doesn't perform, you get blamed for it as well. I mean, these footballers, these managers get paid ridiculous amounts of money. They're actually wearing the kit. They actually have a role in what happens on the pitch. But it's the fans' fault. Now, I've seen United this season. We're really good at home. And the crowd are really good. We saw the flags last time out. They're great. I've also been at Old Trafford under Mourinho, under Ollie, under Ten Hag. I don't get there very often, but when I do go, I've been at games where I remember Crystal Palace against Man United just before Mourinho got sacked. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was very fed up. We're human beings. We're not going to fake enjoyment when it's not going well. But I've never been at a ground where a crowd's not excited at kickoff. But I have been at a ground where a fan base is excited, and then 10 minutes in, they're like, fucking hell, what a load of shit. You can't fake it. So if the players want the fans to give them more, they've got to give them more. And I've seen it. I've been at Old Trafford years ago where United aren't playing that well. And, Ryan Giggs flies into a sliding tackle to win it off an Arsenal player or whatever. And the crowd suddenly go, oh, that's it. Come on. You can't start a fire without a spark, as Bruce Springsteen once sang. And you can't blame fans for poor performances. And it seems to be creeping in a little bit more because obviously fans are more vocal now because of social media and everything. But you are paid a lot of money to perform. You're not going to get Coldplay at Wembley saying, sorry, that was a shit song. You didn't put your phone lights on enough. It's on Chris Martin and it's on the players surely that, the football ultimately is an entertainment sport. If you're on the pitch, your job is to entertain. And if you're not performing, part of being a professional is going, I'm not performing. I need to up my game. You can't go, I'm not playing well because of them. It's their fault. It's not my fault. They're just blame shifters. And Spurs ultimately are the biggest fucking light switch team ever. I mean, this is a team that down tools against Man City and could have got Champions League football, but down tools to stop Arsenal winning the league. So if we're talking about mentality and, inconsistency, I think it's a bit cheap from Spurs players to be blaming Spurs fans.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes fans can be a little too harsh. There's been some times where I've gone, what's going on here? You know, I want to say Jose was the manager, so it could have been Chelsea. I don't think it was United. I don't think it couldn't have been. Maybe it was Tottenham. But some man that they've been on a really good run, and maybe they'd won like 8 of the last 10 games. They were doing really, really well, and they had a bad first half. Do you know what? It might have actually been Harry Redknapp at Spurs. But anyway, done really well. Had a bad first half, and the crowd booed. I remember Harry Redknapp going, fucking hell. Like, it was Harry Redknapp. I think it was like, do you remember where you were when we came in? Look where we are now. We've had a bad half. Calm yourselves down. I get it in that moment, because there's times where we can all be as fans a little bit spoiled. But at the same time, you can't have a go at the fans for moaning that every time you got the ball into a good position, you pass it backwards. They had I tell you when I was really laughing. I shouldn't, but I can't help myself. Was when they had like 3 or 4 free kicks late in the game, and you pump it into the box, and every single one of them, they knocked it short, messed around with it, and it ended up back at the goalkeeper. I was sitting there and thinking, you've got to be checking the betting accounts of these players. Something didn't even seem right.
They were absolutely shit. And I'm not a Spurs fan, but what I said to you at the start, I didn't even know you had a Spurs clip. I felt sorry for Chelsea because they can only do what they can do. And actually, Pedro should have had a hat-trick. They should have won 4-0. So Chelsea have got nothing to do with this. They went away from home and they deserve to win. So Spurs are totally to blame for this. And that game was absolute shit. And the referee had something to do with it, of course. But Spurs were total shit. They deserve to get bloody booed. Honestly, I don't like booing at grounds as much as I'm opinionated. I don't actually like booing that much, but Spurs deserve to get booed. They were fucking rubbish. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the top 4 or not. You're playing Chelsea in a London derby. You're at home. You know, they were shit. They were shit. They deserve all the criticism. You can't blame the fans for that.
No, I agree with that. But one fan I do like laughing at when it comes to Spurs is this guy. This is obviously the voices are mocked up on this. But he was having a go at how bad his team were the other day. But this was only a short while ago from Mr. Jamie O'Hara.
Romero, the best centre-back partnership in the world right now. Why are you not saying nothing? I'm just waiting for laughter track. There's only one player who I think is probably better than them, and that's Van Dijk. Van der Ven is top draw. He is top draw. He walks into Real Madrid's team. Romero walks into Real Madrid's team. I like Van der Ven. Both of them play for Real Madrid. Name better centre-halves than them as a partnership. They don't get the credit they deserve because they're at Tottenham, right? And everyone wants to have a dig at them. You finished 17th! Europa League champions, by the way. Yeah? Europa League champions. Van der Ven was unbelievable in that. Would you have Van der Ven at Chelsea? I like Van der Ven. Does he get in your team? He's not better than Colwill, right? Oh. Right? What? Hold on. He's not better than Colwill. Better than Colwill, right? Oh, mate, I'll go home now. Well, go on then. I wish you would. Van der Ven and Romero are an unbelievable player. They're very good, but they're not the best in the world, Jay. Can you now, Van der
It was this like this one here got me.
As a partnership. They don't get the credit they deserve because they're at Tottenham, right? And everyone wants to have a dig at them. You finished 17th! Europa League.
They should do their whole show in those voices. Honestly, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, they should. It would actually make it more. It would make it entertaining. I mean, yeah. I mean, look. Obviously, you know what I think about that station. I know what it's all about. It literally is scripted bullshit. But I mean, they are the death. Unfortunately, they are the absolute. I mean, somebody with money should start a football radio station because there's nothing else to listen to in this country. You have to listen to it. You get in the car, you choose music or you choose football, and you have to listen to that. And then you have to listen to that. So there should be an alternative because they are what we were talking about. Like it literally is that they are the bottom feeders of what football has become in certain areas, which is you can change your opinion day to day. And it makes it very, very difficult if you are somebody that likes to have a more longer term pragmatic view. I mean, Van der Ven and Romero are good, but they're also very shit. Like they can have games where they're very, very good, but I mean, they're not Gabriel and Saliba. They're not Konate and Van Dijk. They're not at that level, because if you had Gabriel and Saliba at Spurs and you put Van der Ven and Romero at Arsenal would not be top of the league, and Spurs would probably be in the top 3. Because they wouldn't concede goals like Spurs do, and Arsenal suddenly would concede goals like Spurs do. So I like Van der Ven and Romero, but let's not fuck about and pretend that they're one of the best centre backs in partnership in the league, because they're not.
I always look at it this way with Tottenham, and my dad's a Spurs fan, and one of my business partners is a Spurs fan. So I've got a lot of Spurs people around me in my life, and my dad is. He hates about 80% of Tottenham fans, and his whole life he's hated them. Well, his adult life anyway. He's like, because he goes, we always do this thing because I love my club and I think we're the best in the world because they're my team. He said, but so many Spurs fans just honestly believe always, and this isn't just like the last 10 years. He goes, this was going on in the 90s. This would go on. We'd have a good run or we'd sign a decent player. And it's always, oh, we're better than Arsenal now. We're as good as United now. We've got the best, the best. And every now and then they have had a player that you could put in that category, like a Gareth Bale as an example. But everything's always, what we have is so much better than what you've got. And my dad's always found it really embarrassing. And the problem is, O'Hara does this all the time. Our Spurs are back. We're going to challenge for the league title. 6 weeks later, we're finished. We're rubbish. It's over. And it's like, well, maybe you're being paid to say that. Maybe it's scripted, as you say. But there's this element of, and it is funny to watch the meltdown sometimes. But then you watch Chelsea be in a really good run and win trophies. You'll watch Arsenal do what they're doing, and it's slagging it off every 10 seconds. It's like, I don't get it. As you say,
culture, it's like you say, it's a culture thing, isn't it? That Spurs just can't change. And they've had managers that could go in there and change that, the Contes, the Mourinhos, and you can't change it. And, you know, Thomas Frank's only just gone in there, but you look at what Thomas Frank built at Brentford. I thought he deserved the shot at Spurs, but the biggest problem he's going to have is the battle against the culture. You know, I know I'm not saying Ange did well, but I did agree with Ange when they played that game against Man City and the fans and the players actually wanted to lose to stop Arsenal winning. And he wants to win because he wants to get in the Champions League. But they're like, no, we've got to stop Arsenal. And they'd rather stop Arsenal than build something themselves. And it's a very very, very difficult culture to change that.
No, I agree. Well, I think one of the reasons that Spurs fans are actually losing their minds at the moment, even though they're fifth, even though they've been very hard to beat in most games, they've had probably three, I feel, poor performances. But Bodo Glimt, Bournemouth at home, and then Chelsea at home. And I know there's things for them to improve on. I'm not saying they should just be gleefully skipping around like a puppy. But at the same time, I think what's really hurting them is Arsenal being formidable at the top. I think if most Spurs fans were to be, if Arsenal were currently sitting sixth and Spurs were where they are, I think Spurs fans would be jumping for joy. And I do think they have this weird inferiority complex to Arsenal that they cannot get over. But I suppose that's it reminds me a little bit, you know, you might have a friend like this. I know I've got friends like it who they have an older brother or sister. Maybe a younger brother or sister, and they don't have friends. That's true. I've heard the rumors. By the way, weren't you with your team at the football awards last night? I saw Beth and the guys sharing their pictures. Team squad at the Northern
this is really funny. So the team went to the Northwest Football Awards yesterday, last night, and they're all dressed up really nice and like their pictures. And a few people have said, "Why didn't you go?" And I said, with knowing nothing, I said, "We'll probably lose to some shitty lower league podcast. I hate awards. I am not going to go. I don't do awards." Anyway, I get a message from them all night. "Oh, having a great night." Then they messaged me, "We didn't win. We lost to a Stockport County podcast." And I went, "Yeah, I've just looked at their Twitter account. They've got 4,000 followers. It's amazing, isn't it? We've built this over 10 years. It's one of the biggest football media / companies in the world. And we can't." I said, "This is why I don't go. I hate awards in anything. Oscars, bloody anything. I hate awards. They're bullshit. They're basically shit. There is no such thing as an award show that is fair. So I don't go."
I got invited a couple of years ago. I'm not going to name the awards ceremony. I don't disrespect them. I never did the whole nominate yourself and then share it with your audience. And I just think about that. I was like, well, I didn't feel that's what awards. What I mean by that is when I used to get awards when I worked in the banking industry, when I got awards in the martial arts world, often they were surprising. You'd go, "Oh, you give me an award." The Oscars, people get nominated. You don't see Will Smith on his Instagram, right? "I've got to promote winning it." You get nominated by a panel and then you win it by a panel. So I felt a bit weird doing that at that time, but it is what it is. People that do it, no disrespect. I've got friends that do it. I've got no issues with it. But then about 3 years into it, I got an invite. "Oh, would you like to come to the awards evening?" And I was like, "Oh, that's nice to get an invite. Maybe I don't get invited to a lot. I'm just, this is what it is." "Well, yeah, I'm up for coming. Would you like to bring your team? Like, other creators?" "You're cool. This is how much it costs for a table." And I weren't against.
I know who you're talking about now. Anyway,
yeah, I weren't against going. I wasn't against going. I thought, "Okay, I'll pay. Like, we'll do all right." And then It was essentially, I said, I don't know if I can go now. I had something with, I was still working at the time. I had something with work, couldn't go. It was basically, I got told, not by the main organizer, but somebody, if you spend enough money to go, you'll probably win. And I was like, oh, this is just, and then that put me off. I'm like, I'm not paying to win an award. That's just, yeah. So I don't know if that award even goes, that company even does awards anymore. You've got to be really careful with some of them, because some of them.
There was one not long ago. I think it was like Sports Journalism Award or something like that. You did have to pay for a table to be there. And basically there's about 100 United YouTube channels now. And one of them went, obviously paid for a table and won. And I was like, in fairness, the United Stand is the best United channel out there by a very, very long way. But take United Stand out of it, that one's better, 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 and that one's better. And yet you've won the award. And I was just like, fuck off. But I've seen it with the Oscars. I've seen people not win Best Actor and they should have won it. So I just think the trouble with awards is that it's just so subjective. And we've even seen it with football, like the Player of the Year award that gets voted for by players. I think there was an era where when they had to put their votes in, their agents probably like, you've got to put your vote in. And they're probably playing golf and go, just put De Bruyne. He's considered to be a good player, isn't he? And you'd sometimes see De Bruyne win Player of the Year and go, he's probably the best player in the league, but was he the best player this season? And I think that's the problem with awards. You get, these little like bias opinions that, or laziness around it.
There's so much of it that goes on, and look, some people, I've been on a judging panel at the Football Content Awards for the past 4 or 5 years, and I take it really seriously. And if I'm judging a category and I don't know some of the, I'll watch a show or two and try, because I want to do it properly. And it's weird, like having the most views doesn't always necessarily mean the best. Sometimes it's about discovery, but I think you should have the right categories for people. Because what I don't know, I voted I don't know if they've been nominated this year, but 3 years running, I voted for the Big Six to win Best Premier League Podcast, because I looked at it this way. And I sat there, and I know a few of the guys on the panel and on the podcast to a decent level. And they were like, oh, how did it go? So, well, I voted number one. And when I was with the other judges, I said, well, it's got to be number one, because we're comparing it to other Premier League. Like, if you compare, you shouldn't have a podcast your size up against a non-league podcast, because they can never get your numbers no matter how good they are, because there isn't a big enough audience of people that support Stockport, as an example. You should have categories for this, because you've got to do a little bit like weight categories in fighting. But some of the rationale people were giving for the other podcasts to beat the Big Six, I was sitting there going, but that just doesn't make any sense to me, because they all fish out of the same pond. They're all talking to Premier League fans about the Premier League in general. There's just no way with it isn't just the numbers, it's the interactions, it's the clips that go viral. It's like with yourselves, if you're up against any other Man United channel, unless the Man United channel has done a really amazing documentary series that kind of makes them stand out, you all do the same thing, right? Most of them copied you, but they all do the same thing, which is watch-alongs, fan reactions, and kind of news. You're all doing the same thing. If yours is consistently dominating them, theirs just can't be better. Subjectively, it can be, but not objectively. So yeah, the awards it's why I don't take player awards seriously either. What makes me laugh is Chelsea fans are up in my DMs yesterday going, oh, Palmer's in the World 11, Saka's not, hold that. Although I think Palmer's great, by the way. And I'm like, yeah, but you're the same guys the other day told me that Donnarumma's overrated and shit. He's in that same 11. So which is it? Do you take the award seriously, or are you? It's why I never factor awards in at all when I talk about like the greatest players of all time ever. I actually ignore personal awards at all costs, because I just think they're crazy.